Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, are you Andy?
Yeah, I'm Andy, but I'm his brother. It's Lawrence that really needs the support.
Yes, I remember.
Okay, yeah,
Welcome.
okay. We'll wait till the other participant and the speaker today, right? There's a
Yes,
speaker today?
it should be very informative because he's a world-renowned researcher in peripheral neuropathy. So we should hear a lot about what the future holds, I hope.
Okay. And your name was what? Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't.
my name is Pat
Okay,
Gualtieri. I'm the one who's been answering emails, so uh,
okay.
I was familiar. Remind me of your brother's name again, please.
Lawrence?
Lawrence, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's located where?
In California?
California. Okay. We are having incredible winds right now.
Yeah, I know your weather is probably terrible.
It is. And I hope we don't lose power because they've already warned us that we might. That would be terrible.
Yes, it would be, Pat.
I'm
Thank you for letting him join. That's the thing. He needs the support.
sure, no problem. And the question and answer is always good too. You know, if you have specific questions you want to ask the group. But I am curious, were you able to get on without going through the waiting room?
Yes,
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting because we shouldn't be having a waiting room. So,
I
well,
understand. I understand.
well, welcome anyway, Andy. And
Yeah,
we will begin at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock,
Yes. Well, around two-ish.
No, exactly at two.
Well, that's right. We'd like to be exactly at two.
two
Okay.
o'clock, but we're in California, so it's different, right? You're
Yes,
Eastern time, right?
Exactly.
you're
Yeah,
you're
so
you're in the
yeah,
10 o'clock hour, right?
yeah, we're at the 10 o'clock. I have a quick question. His neuropathy is in his feet and it's in his hands. Uh, how do you cope with that? It's like difficult for him.
Uh, it's a recurring question for all of us. Often it starts in your feet and then moves up to the other extremities, including your hands. But that would be a good question for him or you with the agenda, if you'll pull it up.
Okay.
Yes, please bring the agenda up, Judd.
I'll stop sharing then.
Yes, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Porter. I'm the moderator for today's session, and I hope you all are warm because down here in Richmond it's 10 degrees and the snow will not melt for at least 2 months. So we're going to carry on, and some people are losing power at times. So I do want to say that if you lose power, just try and get back on, and that's the best you could do. But we're going to move right along, and um, as you can see the agenda, we have Dr. Hope, which we're very happy to have him. And we then after his presentation, we'll go into our normal. After the break, we'll go to our, as you see, the new attendees open discussion if we have time, and then we go to overtime, and then maybe double overtime, depending on who says what. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Pat to introduce Dr. Hoke to us, and we shall begin the meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Judd, could you stop sharing, please?
Okay.
And we can begin.
Hey, Judd, can you turn off the waiting room, please?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Bill. And I want to thank each of you for joining us for today for this potentially very informative session. I'm thrilled to see the number of people who have heard about it and have decided that this is important enough to spend a Saturday afternoon. We certainly do. Before I introduce Dr. Hoke, a few housekeeping requests. Please mute yourselves so that the background noise doesn't interfere with the presentation. And please type your questions into the chat or keep them in your head until we have the Q&A session after the presentation. Also, for you to know, this session is being recorded If you do not want to be seen or heard or to be recorded, please turn off your video and microphones now. Hey, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ahmet Hoke, who will speak to us on current PN research and what the future may hold for us in terms of new treatments. Many of you know Dr. Hoke. In fact, a number of us in the DC area have been diagnosed by Dr. Hoke, including myself. I was diagnosed at Hopkins by Dr. Hoke in 2015. And I will never forget what he told me. He said, there's no cure yet. He didn't say never. He said, there's no cure yet. And the best treatment I can recommend is exercise, exercise, exercise. And that has become my mantra. Since 2015, if I do nothing else, I exercise every day. So thank you, Dr. Hoke. Let's see. Dr. Hoke is the director of the Merkin Peripheral Neuropathy and Nerve Regeneration Center here in DC. He is also professor of neurology and neuroscience at Hopkins and director of the Drachman Division of Neuromuscular Diseases. He is a mentor to Dr. Gregory Masson, who is about to start his second e-bike tour on March 2nd of 2026 to raise awareness for PN. And we hope to have community meetings along his route, again, to increase awareness of peripheral neuropathy. So at this point, welcome, Dr. Hoke. We are honored to have you.
Thank you very much, Pat, and everybody else in the audience. Let me share my screen. Can you all hear me and see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know this audience is very well versed in peripheral neuropathy, but I thought I will give just a very brief introduction about peripheral neuropathy and especially how we think about developing treatments regarding the types of symptoms that peripheral neuropathy causes. And then focus on some of the really exciting developments that are happening in our field, mainly some of the symptomatic therapies that focus on neuropathic pain, but also, over the next 10 years, we're truly going to see some disease-modifying therapies where there's going to be treatments that prevents nerve degeneration, but also regenerative therapies and gene therapies, especially for a subset of types of peripheral neuropathies. So I don't have to say this to this audience, but peripheral neuropathy is basically a disease of the peripheral nerves. It's a very generic term that covers over 100 different diseases, but your peripheral nerves are literally like an electrical wire that connects the spine and brain to the rest of the body. And because of this long structure that in our lumbar area going down to our feet, that nerve is over 3 feet long, 4 feet long, and that is specifically vulnerable for many insults and metabolic impairments. And that's one of the reasons why peripheral neuropathy is so common. Majority of the time, peripheral neuropathy is going to cause degeneration of the actual nerve cell, which we call the axon. But in very rare cases, you could also have a damage to the insulation around the nerve, which we call that myelin. So if you think of your peripheral nerves like an electrical wire, you have many different types of wires and axons in the peripheral nerve, and they have different functions. So when we see a patient, we think of these 4 different types of nerve fibers, and the symptoms and the examination findings are really going to depend on which one of those nerve fibers are affected and whether the damage to the axon or to the myelin sheath. So when I see a patient with peripheral neuropathy, this is what goes through my mind. And these are the types of domains of peripheral nerves that I then query about their symptoms, and try to get a sense of, is this a neuropathy that is affecting their motor nerves, or is it something that only causes pain because it's affecting the small sensory nerve fibers or not? And this is important because for the positive symptoms of peripheral neuropathy right now, we have some treatments. We can symptomatically try to control pain or what we call the paresthesias, this uncomfortable sensations such as pins and needles, prickling sensations, and so forth. But currently, we have no way of treating the negative symptoms of neuropathy, that is, your lack of sensation or numbness or your poor balance, apart from perhaps physical therapy and exercise. And we can't reverse the muscle atrophy that happens if a motor nerve starts to degenerate. And this is the area where we are hopefully seeing improvements in therapies over the next 10 years. So how do we treat peripheral neuropathy? When I see a patient, the first thing is obviously getting a good history and then trying to first identify an underlying cause and trying to treat this. Many of you probably have the idiopathic peripheral neuropathy, or perhaps some of you have diabetic neuropathy. Diabetes is the single most common. 50% of all neuropathies are due to diabetes. But the other groups, each one accounts for less than 1%, but cumulatively another 15 to 20%. And at 30% of all neuropathies are idiopathic. And that's where the one area that we struggle as clinicians, because we don't have any treatment specific for that. And we really don't understand why that happens. But we know that it happens as we get older. So it's clearly part of it could be some genetic susceptibility. Some of it could be related to aging process. Inflammatory neuropathies, I'm not going to talk about this much. This is the one where it affects the myelin. It's an autoimmune disease. It's extremely rare. A couple patients per 100,000 per year. But these are one types of neuropathy that we do actually have treatments. Um, Again, genetic neuropathies are very rare, but there are already gene therapies that are being developed, and I'll tell you about one of them. But the more common one, CMT1A, several drug companies are gearing up to do gene therapies, and we're going to be one of the sites for that as well. Treating the symptoms of peripheral neuropathy, many of you have been already on these medications, so I'm not going to go through those. But I think the exercise and other ways of dealing with the painful symptoms of neuropathy is important. One of the things I do want to mention about the role of exercise is not just doing aerobic or resistance training, which I've been telling my patients all these years, especially since we had the clinical trial data to show that it actually makes a difference in progression of neuropathy. But balance exercises and Tai Chi type of exercise are also very important because they help prevent falls and improve quality of life of patients. So again, I think before we started, we were having this conversation. It is the most common neurological disease, and yet many people don't even know about it or don't want to talk about it. It's not as sexy as, say, Alzheimer's disease or Lou Gehrig's disease. And as a result of that, funding is very limited compared to Alzheimer's disease, for example, even though neuropathy affects 10 times more patients than Alzheimer's disease. And part of this is that there's fewer people working in the neuropathy field. And 5 years ago, we started to change that by setting up the Merkin Peripheral Neuropathy and the Regeneration Center. And I'll tell you a little bit about our center as well. So as I said, we really need to change this. I don't know. This is one of my favorite cartoons from New Yorker. It says, unfortunately, there's no cure. There's not even a race for a cure. And I think this is finally changing. There is interest in our field from both biotechnology companies, but also big pharma. So, what are we doing to really change this, and how we are making an impact in the field? With a very generous donation from Dr. Richard Merkin and his family foundation, 5 years ago, we set up this new center. And my goal when I discussed this with him was I didn't want him to really just support another research project. I wanted him to really support and expand the field of people who are doing neuropathy research. And with his support, we're basically giving pilot project grants to young investigators who are just finishing their training or in the first 5 years of their faculty appointments to generate pilot project data to test what I would call high risk, high reward ideas. And with that, our center has really made a big difference. But we're also expanding our research by creating a precision medicine center of excellence in peripheral neuropathies at Hopkins. And you may have heard of the term precision medicine, which in many other disease categories or areas, which allows us to do more tailored treatments for specific patient populations. And part of this effort, we're continuing to enroll patients in our natural history study, but we're also generating, again, tools that is going to allow us to model diseases better using human cells rather than using mice or rats to model peripheral neuropathies and test drugs. As I mentioned, we continue our partnership with the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy, and many of you who have been seen at Hopkins have already been enrolled in this natural history study where we're trying to understand genetic basis of idiopathic peripheral neuropathies, but also trying to develop biomarkers for both neuropathy as well as neuropathic pain. I won't go into details today, but we've already have a paper that is under review right now where we identified a novel gene mutation in our idiopathic peripheral neuropathy patients in a subset of them that hasn't been picked up with commercial genetic testing. So even though the patients who are labeled as idiopathic, probably about 8% of those have this mutation. And our goal is to make this assay or the test much more widely available so that people who can then get tested. And these are patients who had no family history of neuropathy, and yet their neuropathy was due to a very unusual type of a mutation in a gene called RFC1. We're also partnering with biotech companies.
It's in the bowl over there.
My laboratory and others have been focusing on an enzyme called SARM1, and I will tell a little bit more about that later on in the talk. That is truly a big breakthrough in our field in the last 5-10 years. We're already doing clinical trials in this inflammatory type of neuropathy, in diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and we're going to be doing clinical trials in chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy. And I'll tell a little bit about this gene therapy in the idiopathic painful type of small fiber neuropathy. So the Merkin Peripheral Neuropathy Center, as I said, we set this up about 5 years ago, focusing mainly on the basic research initially to increase the number of researchers doing work in the peripheral nerve field. We've set up scholarships that and recruited researchers that really focus on the nerve regeneration research track. And our goal is over the next decade to see some of this research that's coming from Merkin Center and also from other laboratories that we collaborate to see the translation of these discoveries and truly having a treatment that is a disease modifying for peripheral neuropathy. As I mentioned, we were set up 5 years ago. So far, we've supported 80 novel projects. These are more than 70 new investigators to the field. We had our first symposia 3 years ago. Next one is later this next month. And more importantly, we started this monthly webinar series to really create a worldwide community of researchers who are interested in peripheral neuropathy. And you should see the enthusiasm and involvement of graduate students, young postdoctoral fellows in peripheral neuropathy. And that's how we're going to come up with new ideas and new discoveries. We need young blood in the field. As part of our efforts, we're also focusing on big data, and you've probably heard of the term artificial intelligence and how it's been so transformative in many fields. It's also been transformative in the research arena, especially in drug discovery. Obviously, when companies focus on artificial intelligence and using that for drug discovery, they're going to go after big markets. Even though peripheral neuropathy has a potentially huge market, big pharma has, for the most part, become what I would call disillusioned because there has been so many negative trials in the past where they have spent billions of dollars in diabetic neuropathy trials that failed. So they are very cautious in getting into the field. They want to go into disease targets that are easier to tackle. So this is probably the most important part of my talk. What's on the horizon? So we're going to talk a little bit about two targets. One of them is already FDA approved. These are the sodium channel inhibitors. And then we'll talk a little bit about the disease modifying therapies. So what are sodium channels? Sodium channels are proteins in the membrane of our nerve cells that normally senses pain. They come in different, they're encoded by different genes, and so there are different types of sodium channels. The one that I listed here, NAV 1.7 and 1.8, are the two most important ones because both of these sodium channels are upregulated in neuropathic conditions. So whether it is from diabetes or from traumatic nerve injury, these are upregulated in your sensory neurons that reside just outside the spinal cord. And why is this important? When you have a painful condition, let's say you have diabetes, and you have constant burning pain in your feet. The reason you experience that pain isn't because there's something external causing that pain, but that nerve that normally would have sensed pain, burning pain in your foot, has degenerated and actually receded from your foot. So if you touch it, maybe your foot will feel numb, and yet you would experience burning sensation in your feet because that same nerve coming from your foot, connecting all the way back to the spinal cord and to the brain, is still intact. And when that nerve loses its connection to the skin, it becomes electrically unstable. It sends spontaneous electrical discharges to the brain. And that electrical discharges occur because of this upregulation of this protein. That is, your sensory neuron all of a sudden, instead of having, let's say, 10 of these proteins in this membrane, has 20 of them. So it becomes much more leaky for electrical discharges to happen. And so drug companies have been, for over 2 decades, have been trying to develop blockers of this electrical hyperactivity, and they had not been very successful, partly because you do not want to block this channel completely because then it will have some side effects. But finally, one company was very successful, and some of you may have heard of this drug called suzetrigine. It is currently FDA approved for acute pain. And what it does is, you can see this cartoon here on the right-hand side, the sodium channel, when it's open, that is, when you have electricity conducting through your nerve cell, it allows the sodium electrolytes to pass through and get inside your nerve cell. But suzetrigine keeps this channel in closed state, preventing from sodium channel and prevents the propagation of that electrical impulse to the brain. And so this has been a game changer in the sense that it is a totally new type of a pain medication. It's non-opioid. Unfortunately, the company went for this to get FDA approval. They first tested it in acute post-surgical pain. So people who had bunionectomy or dental surgeries, these were easy clinical trials to do. You get an answer within a couple months. And they had an FDA approval. And I've prescribed it a couple of my patients, even though they had benefits. Unfortunately, insurance companies refusing to cover it so far. However, the same company has an ongoing large phase 2-3 trial in diabetic peripheral neuropathy. This started a little bit more than a year ago, and they're hoping to complete the study in about another year and a half. And if the data looks as good as what it did in their phase 2 trial, then this is likely to result in FDA approval of this compound, where we can then, insurance companies will have to cover it for neuropathic pain. I think this is not going to cure the neuropathy, but it is another class of medication that we can try in addition to, say, gabapentin, pregabalin, or duloxetine. Another company, Sangamo, is taking a different approach. So they have this really cool gene therapy approach for other diseases, but they have generated some preliminary preclinical data to show that they can package this, what they call a zinc finger repressor element, to downregulate a gene or a protein in any cell type they want. If they package it into a virus, this is adeno-associated virus, and this is the main virus that is used in gene therapies. You can then deliver it intrathecally. This will be a one-time treatment, and it will go and suppress the expression of this NAV 1.7 protein in the sensory neurons. So the resulting is that your sensory nerve cells that had that upregulation of the sodium channel now will have a downregulation with this gene therapy, and the result should be that you should have less pain. Again, this is going to be a symptomatic therapy, and the company is doing what we call a phase 1, phase 2 trial, where there will be testing the safety of this approach, but also to generate some efficacy data in these patients. they've already started and enrolled 2 patients, one in Arizona and one at MGH in Boston. We are going through our institutional IRB approval right now, and we hope to be one of the sites in the next 3 to 6 months. Again, this is going to be for patients who have failed all the other typical pain drugs or are in severe pain and are willing to take the risk of trying some experimental new therapy. Apart from those symptomatic therapies, though, there is big excitement in the field for a different type of treatment, which is preventing axon degeneration. So, when we talk about axon degeneration, so this is your nerve cells here, this is the axon, this is a healthy one, and you have the myelin. In a typical peripheral neuropathy, the degeneration starts from the distalmost part of the nerve and slowly progresses. But there's also a different type of a nerve degeneration where if you had a trauma, for example, you cut your nerve, this distal part that degenerates, we now know the molecular mechanism of this process happens. It's called Wallerian degeneration. And in the last 10 years, what we now know is that many of the molecules that mediate this type of a nerve degeneration are similar in the type of nerve degeneration that we see in peripheral neuropathies. And that has made a huge impact in the field. So and this is again a complicated scientific slide, but what I want to mention here is that when you have a nerve injury, there is a protein that normally gets transported down to your nerve cell constantly that makes a substrate called NAD. And this is the enzyme is called NMNAT2. It makes NAD, and NAD makes ATP, which is the main, think of it as like the fuel for your car. It is the main substrate for that generate energy in our cells. And the way this works is when you cut this, your cell body, your nerve cell cannot transport this NMNAT to the distal nerve. And when that happens, another enzyme gets activated. So this is an enzyme called SARM1. When this enzyme gets activated, it rapidly degrades any NAD that is present in the nerve and causes it to rapidly degenerate. So we now know that in peripheral neuropathies, where this degeneration happens from the distalmost part, but happens very slowly, the same thing is happening. Partly because as we get older, our nerve cells do not transport as many NMNAT2 molecules as when we were younger. And that's one of the reasons why neuropathy is more common in older people. And then when you have any disease like diabetes or chemotherapy drugs or alcohol that impairs this transport of this protein leads to activation of SARM. And we and others have shown that if you take a mouse and delete this gene from the mouse, those mice do not develop any neuropathy, no matter what you throw at them. And so it's been a very strong rationale for developing inhibitors of this enzyme, SARM1. And currently, multiple companies are rapidly developing SARM1 inhibitors and are already in clinical trials. Eli Lilly bought a company called Disarm, which had the first SARM1 inhibitors. They've already shown that their drug is safe, and they're planning on a phase 2 trial, but they've been very quiet about it. Another company called Neurobio, their phase 2 trial is already being planned. And Cyronax, it's a Chinese company, but their drug also works really well. And in fact, their phase 2 clinical trial is just starting, and we're actually going to be one of the sites through their US subsidiary. But apart from that, a bunch of other companies, including Roche and a couple others, are also developing SARM1 inhibitors. And it's good that we have so many companies getting into the field, because that means that, if one company's drug has a little bit of a side effect, perhaps another one can come up with a SARM1 inhibitor that is even more effective or has fewer side effects. So, I've been in the neuropathy field for more than 30 years, but I think next 10 years is really going to change because we're going to have, for the first time, an ability to stop the degeneration. So that takes me back to my second comment. That is, okay, if we stop the nerve degeneration, what happens to the patients who already had neuropathy, who already has numbness, weakness, and so forth? The problem with nerve regeneration is that there are 5 different major challenges, and there's no way you can come up with a single drug or a supplement or anything that will fix all 5 problems. So one problem is human nerves regenerate extremely slowly. Even if let's say you have a cut nerve in your wrist, our nerves and surgeon goes and repairs it. They actually have a capacity to regenerate. So peripheral nerves can grow back, but do it very slowly, about 1 millimeter a day, which translates to about 1 inch a month. But the problem is, if you have a more proximal nerve injury or had neuropathy for a long time, the nerve cells, the cells that make that myelin, which we call the Schwann cells, they basically become senescent. That is, they get old. And when they get old, even if you bring new nerve cells, axons to them, they don't support the regeneration. They don't form myelin around it. And therefore, you cannot get good regeneration back to your target muscle or to the skin. And so you need to fix that problem. And there are ways of doing that. There is a new class of drugs that are being developed called senolytics that target these quote unquote aged cells, senescent cells, and gets rid of them, allowing the healthier cells to proliferate and repair the nerves. You have to come up with drugs that promote that myelin formation, because if you don't get your nerve cells form myelin, you're not going to be able to conduct electricity efficiently. And then for patients who have muscle weakness, you have to deal with the atrophy that happens in muscles. You have to come up with a way to either replace the atrophied muscle cells with either cell-based therapies or perhaps some drugs that can reverse the muscle atrophy. So this field is a lot behind compared to the axon degeneration field, but this is the area where there's a lot of young people working in this, and I'm quite hopeful that we're going to have some treatments over the next 5 to 10 years that are at least going to make it to clinical trials. And then that takes me to the last point. Obviously, this does not apply to majority of peripheral neuropathies, but for genetic peripheral neuropathies, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have an onslaught of treatments. Some of you may heard of the treatments for spinal muscular atrophy. This is a type of a motor neuron disease that affects babies, and these babies used to die within a year or 2 after birth. But now there's gene therapies, and these kids are now living longer and maintaining their strength. There's a type of a therapy for, again, a very rare type of neuropathy called TTR amyloid neuropathy. There's some of you may heard of the term CRISPR gene editing. This has been done now for sickle cell disease, and several laboratories around the world are racing to use the same gene editing technique for inherited neuropathies. The beauty of this is, once you find a way to do it right, all you have to do is you put your correct gene editing into the virus vector and then treat it. So because genetic neuropathies are extremely different from each other. There's over 100 different types of genes that can cause neuropathy. So it's not feasible to develop one treatment that will fix everything. So you have to really tailor each mutation and each treatment for that patient. That's where the precision medicine comes to point. But I think by standardizing the virus delivery technique, we're going to be able to make a big impact. In fact, one of our recent successes was in collaboration with our colleagues at the National Institute of Health. This was published almost 2 years ago now, where we treated a very rare type of a neuropathy called giant axonal neuropathy that affects kids. And gene therapy in these patients actually worked. It wasn't perfect, and we have a lot more work to do in terms of, improving either the delivery of the virus or making the corrections more efficient. So in the last 1 minute, I want to put in a plug-in for Dr. Gregory Maassen, who is a patient of mine who had already done a e-bike tour across the country following the Lincoln Highway a couple years ago to raise awareness and funds for the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy. And he'll be doing a similar e-bike tour across America to again raise awareness and funds for neuropathy research. And this is the tour he is starting in um, uh, West Palm Beach and will end up in Los Angeles over 5 months. And we're going to use this tour to raise awareness with stops along the way. And not just raise awareness, but also use an opportunity to educate local physicians who may not see too many neuropathy patients, but also help educate patients as well. So with that, I will stop and entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Hoke. I wanted to comment on the motto of the Merkin Center: join us as we move science and hope forward. And I think that's what everyone is here today, moving that hope forward along with the science. We have a number of questions already in the chat. I'd like to go ahead and ask Wendy. She asked something about the peptide ARA 290. Wendy, would you like to address Dr. Hoke?
Oh, hi. I guess hi, Dr. Hoke. I really appreciate how simplified you made this for someone like me. I actually felt like at some level I was following along, and I don't have that cognition. But a friend of mine got much better from. Now I'm so nervous. I'm losing the name of that peptide here. The 290. Let me see where the peptide is. It didn't make it through FDA approval. It's called the ARA 290, and another word for it is CIBINETIDE. And it really helped his neuropathy, and he said now he can pay $500 for it. He doesn't know why it didn't get FDA approval. I have peripheral neuropathy, but not at the level that he does. He also has some small fiber and a lot more numbness. And so I guess he couldn't join us today, but I wanted to find out if you knew anything about that. And he's afraid that peptides could be harmful in general. Otherwise, he can afford it.
Okay.
Okay.
So that compound, the peptide ARA290, is actually something I worked on, not directly on that, but the protein that it mimics almost more than 20 years ago. I even had
Got it.
so it activates the receptor for a protein called erythropoietin.
Yeah.
So erythropoietin is what your blood cells need to make new blood cells. And the problem with erythropoietin, in fact, I even designed a clinical trial. We were going to test it in chemotherapy patients, and the company pulled it because too much of erythropoietin causes strokes and heart attack. This came about 22, 23 years ago. So after that mess, companies kind of stopped developing erythropoietin for neuropathy because they were actually testing it for stroke and other stuff.
I
In
get
mice,
it.
it works. So, and then people tried to figure out, can we actually shorten the protein and find the active domain that doesn't cause the blood cells to proliferate? And that's what ARA 290 is. So it worked well in animal models, but in clinical trials, it was no better than the placebo.
Okay.
And that's why the FDA did not approve. And that's one of the biggest challenges is if you're designing it just to treat pain, there's a huge placebo effect. 30% of the patients, 40% improve just thinking that they are taking a medication. Just so finding something, then you need to come up with a drug that's much more effective than that 30%. But
Wow.
that's what that is with the ARA
Thank
tonight.
you. Thank you. I'll try to
Dr. Hope.
mute myself again.
We are going to stop for a moment here. We have about 5 questions in the chat, but you also are, of course, asked to raise your hand if you have a question, as Ann Perper just did. Ann, would you like to address your question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, hello, Dr. Hoke. My question is that I have a chemo related peripheral neuropathy, and I've seen Dr. Smith at Hopkins with the scrambler therapy.
Yes.
Unfortunately, because mine is not pain, it's numbness and other physical experiences that I have in my feet. It didn't really do anything for me. I've tried it a couple of different times. He knows that it's not as successful with people who have my type of neuropathy. And I'm just wondering, would it be useful for me to come see you and get into one of your studies, or what's your thought on that?
I mean, as I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, the currently we don't have a way to treat that numbness sensation. Like we can't get rid of it. The medication like gabapentin, pregabalin, or electrical stimulation like scrambler therapy doesn't bring the sensation back. I don't know how long ago you had neuropathy, but one thing I would say is that chemotherapy is a one-time damage. Almost every patient I have seen improve over time, and the improvement can continue for years. So if your neuropathy is only about a year or two, don't give up hope. I've seen people continue to improve up to 5 years.
No, it's been 6 years for me, and
Ah.
I have not seen any improvement.
Yeah.
And I have all kinds of different experiences, like my feet feeling really tight, all different. Yeah. And so so not much hope right now. It's the bottom line. Okay.
Keep up exercising. That should help, though.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Phil, you have a question on a BTK inhibitor? Phil Bettendorf?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I have DADS, and I've had peripheral neuropathy for 18 years, long time. And initially I did not go on rituximab, but I did go on Calquence. So the BTK inhibitor has dropped my IgM significantly, but with no clinical improvement. So I've got a team of, I'm in Michigan. So Dr. Steino is at U of M, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
a specialist.
I know him well.
Oh, fantastic. He's
Yeah.
got me in a study too. But my hematologist started me on rituximab. So his thought is, I'm on the BTK inhibitor, the IgM is coming down for the B protein, the rituximab is going to give my immune system a break. And to your point, I'm doing Tai Chi, I'm physical therapy, strength training. So I've done my research on BTK inhibitors. I've read a lot. Just what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so unfortunately for dad's type of neuropathy, I assume you have IgM, monoclonal gammopathy.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have anti-MAG also?
Yes.
Yeah. So there isn't really any treatment that really works. In the audience, a couple of my patients with anti-MAG will attest to it. We can bring the IgM levels down, but seeing clinical improvement is very few lucky patients I have seen it stabilization or maybe just a little bit of improvement, but majority of the time, whether they go on rituximab or BTK inhibitors or other types of treatments that target the bone marrow, there isn't really true reversal of the disease. We just don't understand, how the IgM causes the neuropathy and whether it can, even if you stop it, right now we have no way of repairing that damage that already happened.
Right. And just like the previous individual that said she has numbness, that's what I have. I don't have pain, but I've got numbness. And so I'm doing everything I can to maintain the balance.
Yep.
And
So for balance, doing daily balance exercises is very important. I mean, I don't have neuropathy, but I started, and I'm 61. Started doing Pilates 6, 7 years ago, and every day, every morning, I spend 5 minutes doing balance exercise because, as I got older, I've noticed that my balance is not what it used to be. And I like hiking. I mean, I've gone on really high mountain hiking and still, in order to really keep up with what's happening to my body, I need to do something to prevent that slow degeneration that happens with just normal aging.
all right. Well, thanks. I appreciate the input. I know the trajectory, and I also have, mentally I'm focused on having a good attitude, even though I know where I'm at and where I'm 63 and I've got, a 30-year trajectory,
And,
so.
but one thing with the anti-MAG neuropathies is it's very slow. So nothing is going to happen overnight or next year.
And that's what I'll leave you with. Dr. Steinel told me, he says, Phil, you're actually doing pretty good.
Yep.
So anyway, thanks for the input. I know there's a lot of people on the call, so I will yield the floor.
All right, Lawrence, I see your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Hi, doctor. It's nice to see you. I wish you'd tell the truth. You look so much younger than 61. I don't believe you're 61. I think you're a lot younger. So we met each other, oh my gosh, maybe 40 years ago. I think you were first starting out. And it was Dr. Kornberg. You took over his practice.
Cornblath.
Yeah, Kornblatt. That's right. Sorry. So I have three questions I wanted to ask you. As you may, I don't know if you remember, but I had neuropathy very early on, and then I was on interferon for polycythemia vera for over 20 years, and I slowly developed my neuropathy. I used to go up to New York and see Dr. Silver, who's in charge of the polycythemia program, and he put me on interferon, said, I don't want to make a cripple out of you. So over the years, slowly and slowly, I've developed a really severe neuropathy all over. If it weren't for gabapentin, I couldn't sleep at night. And I do realize that it affects my thought process and my thinking. So I wonder if my peripheral neuropathy is from the interferon or is a combination of interferon and just undiagnosable. Are there any things you would recommend? The second question is, where is the article that you addressed earlier? That what journal is it being published in? I'd love to read it. And how does one attend the symposium, the 2026 symposium?
So if you go on our website, the Merkin Peripheral, if you just type in Merkin Peripheral Neuropathy and Research, and that we will have the symposium information on our website. Maybe I can log in and get you guys that information and put it on the.
Layla said that she would be sending it out.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. That's great. So coming back to, I remember you very well, Mr. Silverberg, because you have a very unusual history, because I don't think I've ever seen another patient who we thought the interferon might be playing a role in the neuropathy, although there are case reports like you who've been on it for a long time where the hypothesis is that their neuropathy is from that. But, you know, neuropathy is such a common disease, we will never be sure if your neuropathy is from interferon. The only way to test that would have been stopping the interferon and see if your neuropathy got better or at least stop progressing. And I don't think you did that because I can't remember that part. But in terms of your symptoms, gabapentin, obviously, the dose can be adjusted. Maybe you can look into pregabalin that has a little bit less sedating side effects than gabapentin. And then hopefully when Vertex get approval for suzetrigine, that could be a big game changer for patients like you who have trouble with the pain and have impaired sleeping, because it is not a sedating drug. It doesn't affect the opioid system. So it's in that sense, it's a very safe drug.
Okay. And just what about the symposium?
So the symposium is really geared, it's a very scientific symposium. It is a way for our young investigators who were funded the year before to present their findings. We will have keynote speakers, one actually from a scientist from Chile who studies nerve regeneration and who published this work on the senescence and the Schwann cells. So I think you can attend it in person if you want to come to Hopkins. I'm not sure if we're going to have it on Zoom. Lali can probably put that information on the chat.
Too bad you can't have it in Columbia, Maryland.
All right, Mike K,
Dr.
go
Hoke,
ahead.
can I just, somebody has asked how they can get involved with some of your, how to apply for trials at Hopkins. Is there a way to do that?
The easiest is probably email me. Pat has my email. Pat, you can share it with everybody, and I'll forward it to our study coordinators.
Excellent.
All right, Mike, go ahead. Mike
Yeah.
K.
Hi. Hi. Thanks a lot, Dr. Hoke. It's the first time I've heard you. I laid out some of my issues, but the bottom line is, I guess, first of all, I'm looking to see if there are any clinical trials going on for somebody like myself. I had lumbar fusion, and as a result of the fusion, I ended up with damaged nerves. In particular, I've got a nerve to my gluteus medius, I guess, which is not firing at all, and I have this Trendelenburg gait. But I also developed peripheral neuropathy, and this has been ongoing probably for 7 or 8 years now. And what I was told is that the nerves, if they grow back, they'll happen in the second or third year after, within 2 years, and it hasn't.
Yep.
So now I'm basically faced with I'm taking opioids, I'm taking gabapentin, it makes me very foggy. I've even got a spinal cord stimulator put in to try and see if I can diminish that. But I'm just wondering what am I missing, or are there things going on that in research that I might be able to come see you or do something that I'm not doing already?
Yeah. So
And oh,
sounds
one
like,
last thing. I
yeah.
have a neurologist who's been watching me, and she said the neuropathy is not progressing. It's stable. So I guess that's a good sign. So go ahead.
Yep. So unfortunately, you have two things that can give similar symptoms. That is pain because it affects the peripheral nerves. Damage nerves from lumbar stenosis or herniated discs. If it is severe enough that it's causing your gluteus medius muscle to be atrophied, that's affecting your gait. And if that happened a couple of years ago and there's not improvement, unfortunately, nothing is going to change that right now. But that's one slide that I put about the regenerative challenge. So we're actually right now putting together an international team of investigators and to really address all those issues. We're going to be creating almost like a virtual biotech company without the infrastructure of a biotech. These are all research is going to be done in academic centers. UCLA, a colleague in Germany, Chile, and Hopkins, who have been working, we've been working together on nerve regeneration field for a long time. And our goal is to do drug screening with known drugs because some drugs can be repurposed totally unexpectedly, may have an effect on nerve regeneration. We just don't know it because nobody has actually tested them. Some of the really old drugs. I'll tell you one thing. Recently, my colleague at UCLA serendipitously found that propofol, which is an anesthetic agent, actually improves the neurons' ability to grow faster. So, but you can't give propofol to patients. So we're going to work with our medicinal chemists trying to come up with propofol analogs that we can give slowly or in a pill form for patients. We're going to start with, so right now I'm actually working on a big grant to really to accelerate that type of a research. Start with drug screening using those stem cells that we generated from patients, and then test it in rats and then primate models, and then hopefully get to a clinical trial stage in 5 years.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's
All right,
helpful.
Dr.
And
Hoke, I've got about almost 3 o'clock and we take a break, and I'm just wondering on your schedule, and I do see some hands up and some questions in the chat. My question to you is, can we take a break and can you come back and be with us, or do you have to?
No, sure. Happy to be with you guys.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll take a little 5-minute break and come back about 3:02, and Rich will start with you.
I'll
Okay,
be here.
when we come back.
Pat,
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Pat,
Okay,
could you put
all right,
Dr. Hoke's email in the chat, please?
Yes, I will. Well,
all
I
right, go
I'll
hydrate and remember, motion is lotion, rest is rust.
And
So,
I missed the first 2 minutes of this. I really apologize. Will the PowerPoint be available from Dr. Hoke?
yes.
yes,
Thank you. Thank you.
yes. Okay, go hydrate and exercise.
Yeah.
Davis and Susan.
Had a 5-minute break, and I needed it. I don't want to. Oh, I'm going to.
Pat,
Yes,
this is Judson. Was the audio okay during that presentation?
yes,
Good.
I thought so.
I've been offline since about 5 minutes into the presentation.
Oh, no.
I don't know what's going on, but anyway,
How'd that happen, Judson?
what?
How'd that happen? Do you know?
I don't know. I wasn't kind to my computer, I guess.
I guess not.
You
So
got to
can-
watch that.
Two questions. Can we promise that we will have the recording available in a few days? What would you like to say? Because everyone's asking.
How about 2 weeks?
Okay. And the slideshow, can it go up on the website?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Those are the most repeated questions.
Right.
Jay.
I've been cutting out all during this whole video. It's just out and then get back in and then it goes out.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I've been connected is during this break. So
it could be wind and weather and things.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think
it's really frustrating.
Where are you, Kathleen?
Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, probably two different problems, but I'm going to blame my internet provider.
Yeah, I don't know who to blame.
Yeah.
Blame others. I'll blame somebody else. So.
Well, they're always good as a whipping boy.
Kathleen, the good news is that this is being recorded and it will be made available.
Every time it lets me back in, it says this is being recorded. So that's my question is where can I find the recording?
Yes.
On our website.
At the Peripheral Neuropathy. Okay.
We'll put that in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm not back on yet. I'm on my iPad.
Yeah, I can see.
So, Pat, I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear on the wrap up.
Oh, okay. Will the presentation, the recording be on YouTube?
Yes, it'll be on our website under past meetings.
Okay. Are we back enough to grab, because Dr. Hoke is back, can we grab Rich and then Susan after him?
Mm-hmm. That's what I have down.
Sure.
Rich, and then Susan.
I'm ready to go if you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Dr. Hoke, thank you so much for your time. I was a patient of Dr. Kornblath for about 3 years, and I'm now a patient of Dr. Rhoda. I'm 72 years old. I know there's a broad spectrum of symptoms ranging from pain, pins and needles, numbness, burning, and combinations of all that. I've had peripheral neuropathy for about 8 years. It's been all numbness. It's been a slow progression from starting with my toe feeling numb one morning. Now it's to my ankles. But it's slow but steady. Fortunately, no pain. And I forgot to ask Dr. Rhoda this question during my last visit, which was last November. But my question is, we've talked about numbness. I heard the word trajectory. I thought that's a good word. I'm just curious, long term, what's the typical trajectory for someone who experiences numbness only? Again, been very fortunate, no pain, but the typical trajectory for someone who for the last 8 years, numbness only, I'm expecting that to increase over time as it has been doing, but do symptoms, do they often evolve into pain or long-term mobility issues or other?
Yeah. So if you had it for 7-8 years and your main symptom is just numbness, it's very unlikely that it will evolve into pain. So that's the good news. One thing we're finding is that late onset mainly very slowly progressive numbness type of so-called idiopathic neuropathies probably have a genetic basis. As I mentioned briefly, this new gene that we identified, RFC1, accounts for about 8% of the so-called idiopathic category, which is 30% of all neuropathies. But there are probably other genes that we just need to discover. We have about 2,500 patients in our peripheral neuropathy research registry in collaboration with other academic centers. And we just, a year ago started doing what we call a whole genome sequencing, where we sequence everything and trying to analyze that data set. We've started up with about the first 800 patients. And the more we do, the more statistical power we will have to find rare variants. So coming back to your symptoms, if it's been just numbness, it's very unlikely that it's going to turn into more aggressive type of neuropathy. This is more of a nuisance for somebody like you at your age. It will eventually, though, affect your balance. I can't, without examining you, I can't tell, when that's going to happen. It could happen next 10 years or 20 years that you may need a cane.
So we had my grandkids over for about a year and a half. They had all kinds of toys, balance beams, things like that, and they got me trying it. So I've been enjoying that.
Good.
My last year, Dr. Kornblath last year before he retired, he did take samples for the genome.
Okay, so you are part of our registry.
I think I'm one of the 2,500 you may have mentioned. Now, is that something for people who have been admitted to that or participating in that? Is that something that, or is my record in there? Is that something that if there's ever a discovery, or is it something that I should get updated?
Yeah, so that's a little bit complicated because of the ethics rules involved around clinical research, especially genetic research like that. I won't be able to match the genetic test results back to an individual patient. Everybody becomes a number. So what we do, the genetic testing, is the de-identified samples. But our goal is the more we find these new genes, we can then ask the commercial laboratories to incorporate those tests in their panels of genes that then if anybody wants to be tested, then they can get tested through commercial labs.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yep.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, Rich, Susan, your hand's up. Go ahead, Susan.
So I developed neuropathy after I had ovarian cancer 3 times and all of the chemo associated with that. But I only had it in my face, numbness and burning, and my face had turned beet red. And then when I took the COVID vaccine in 2021, I developed neuropathy from head to toe. Terrible, terrible side effects, burning, numbness, pain, everything. It slowly, so that was 2021. It has slowly gone down unless I get stressed, but into my legs and feet. And our son is now a hyperbaric, yes, chamber technician. And I was wondering if I saw a study on it that was done years ago, but I wondered what your thoughts were on the hyperbaric chamber and COVID vaccine.
Sure. You probably had oxaliplatin as part of your chemotherapy because that causes an unusual type of neuropathy that can affect the face, mouth, and so forth. But probably you had some distal nerves damage to your hands and feet as well from that. But some patients are just not very symptomatic of it. The second type of neuropathy you had after COVID, that's very typical of post-infectious or post-vaccine neuropathy that tends to affect the whole body in a patchy manner. The good news is it's not a continuous type of or progressive type of neuropathy that tends to improve over time. The improvement can be variable. Some patients improve 80, 90%. Sometimes it's only 20, 30%. It depends on the initial degree of the damage. Coming back to the hyperbaric chamber, unfortunately, it has been tried in many different types of neuropathies. Doesn't really make a big difference. And any initial early benefits that were reported from, 20, 30 years ago, those are probably just placebo effects.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Pat, I saw your hand going up. Were you going to scratch your nose or you have a question?
I actually have a question for Dr. Hope.
Well, actually, Effie's been waiting to ask a question. So, Effie Stallsmith?
Yes.
Okay,
Good afternoon.
Effie.
I will be 85 this August, and I've had neuropathy for a good many number of years. I got hit by a car, and I'd already had probably 20 operations, but then when I got hit by the car, I've had 5 spinal operations, a rib and a half removed, a blockage in my leg removed, lost the use of my leg twice, been in the hospital. I have neuropathy throughout my entire body. I can't even take Tylenol because I'm allergic to it. I'm wondering if there's any hope for me to, I do exercise. That's the only thing that keeps me going, is I do a lot of exercise. I don't even use my cane 90% of the time because I keep my balance. I say I wibble, but I don't. I wibble, I wobble, but I don't fall down. I have fallen in the past, but is there any hope?
Again, you probably needs more of a regenerative therapy if you want to improve what you already have. I think you're already doing the right thing by exercising. You probably should use your cane more often because it takes only one fall, unfortunately. At your age, I mean, you look great. You don't look 85, but at your age, a major fall, a hip fracture, and so forth can be
I've had
quite
both
detrimental.
replaced. So both hips have been replaced, the knee replaced, one shoulder twice. I've had
But a
40 some
pelvic
operations.
fracture can be really detrimental. I've had many patients who were doing okay, and then
Yeah.
once you're bedbound from a pelvic fracture, it can be really bad. So I usually tell my patients that don't take chances with balance.
Even if you are the bionic woman.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, Pat, go ahead, because if I don't call on Pat, she'll put me in the corner. So go ahead, Pat.
Could I say one more thing?
Yes,
My neurologist has turned me over to the pain doctor because she doesn't feel like she can do anything else for me. I do get spinal injections, and the ones in my neck and my upper back still help some. The lower back does not help at all anymore.
I mean, you can look into if the pain is really intractable, spinal cord stimulators are effective.
That's
they
what
work,
he talked to me about.
yeah, they
thinking
work
about.
for about 10 years. And for reasons we don't understand, they lose their efficacy after about 10 years.
Well, at 85, I guess I won't worry about.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Effie. Did that answer your question? Okay, good. Alexandra Thomas, I'll defer to you. I think your hand is up. You need to unmute.
Oh, yes, I need to unmute. Okay, this will be quick. I just want to start with the fact that so I had epilepsy for years, and in 20 years ago, 21 years ago, I had a partial temporal lobectomy, so part of my brain was removed, and I'm doing great. A couple days after that is the time when I noticed my neuropathy while I was doing heel raises in the gym. So anyway, it progressed, and it's axonal neuropathy, so I'm losing both the muscle and I've got the okay, so my feet were so painful that I couldn't sleep at all. So I decided finally to go on gabapentin. This is my question. I've been on Lamictal for years, and I'm on 600 milligrams of it. I went on gabapentin, and 100 milligrams, which is almost nothing, worked. And I'm wondering if those two can work together, Lamictal and gabapentin.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, because
Yeah.
people are like, how did it happen so fast? And I was like, I'm only up to 200.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, tell me.
So Lamictal is not a first-line treatment because it has a lot more side effects than gabapentin. But it can work for neuropathic pain. We would consider that more of a third or fourth line agent.
Right.
Again, they both work on the sodium channels, but slightly differently. The Lamictal's chemical structure and gabapentin are slightly different. So I've had patients who were on like low dose of gabapentin, maybe 300 three times a day, and a low dose Lamictal, maybe like 50 or 100 added. They can work synergistically. In fact, for most patients, it's really a trial and error. You try to find the right combination of medications, maybe low doses of 2 or 3 that act either synergistically or through different mechanisms to bring relief. So
Okay.
in
So
your case, it was like found by chance.
yeah, so
The
you really
combination.
think that is what's helping, so don't go off the Lamictal.
I
Okay.
wouldn't.
No, I won't. Okay, that was so interesting to learn. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yay, Pat.
All right, now I will ask my question. Several years ago, Dr. McCrae spoke to our group, and at that time, he suggested that I was seen by Dr. Hoke at Hopkins in 2015, and he said I needed to return because there were new biomarkers identified. The genetic study had not shown anything in 2015, although both my mother and sister have peripheral neuropathy. I wondered, is that still true? Should I be making an appointment, Dr. Hoke? Should we be trying to update our information in the registry?
Yes, the short answer, especially with a strong family history like you. Is your sister available also to give samples?
Yes, she
Yeah.
is.
Because I mean, commercially, we could also do this one test called whole exome sequencing. Insurance companies do cover that.
Okay.
So, what you probably had was a targeted CMT panel genetic testing, which at that time was able to test probably about 50 or 60 genes. Even that panel now has over 100 genes right now, but we could do a more comprehensive test called whole exome sequencing through commercial labs. And when you do that, it's most helpful when you have a family member also affected and another family member not affected. So if you do it as a trio, the information is a lot more helpful, especially if you guys have a novel gene. Literally every year, scientific community identifies 1 or 2 new genes that can cause neuropathy.
How would I set this up? Because I have one sister who doesn't have PN and another who has diabetic.
Perfect. So reach out to me, send me an email. What I can do is, so one of my colleagues, Dr. Mukherjee Clavin, she specializes in inherited neuropathies. So we can set you up for an appointment with her and have you see our genetics counselor to get the testing done.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Bryce, you're up. Bryce Johnson. Hello, calling Bryce Johnson.
I'm gonna see my hand.
Bryce, you have to unmute.
Move it around a little.
Unmute Bryce.
There it comes.
Okay, there I am. There I am. Okay, so I suddenly woke up one day and my feet were numb, and um, I've been diagnosed with small cell neuropathy in my feet, and I've tried a couple of different things. I went to a neurologist, and he prescribed me, and hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, is naltrexone.
Okay.
And it didn't seem to really do much for me, so I stopped taking that. But I've read a lot of stuff about different supplements, turmeric, all these different things. Does any of that stuff work for you?
Yeah. So the short answer for nutritional supplements and vitamins is that unless you're deficient because of a diet or some other medical condition like pernicious anemia and so forth, none of the extra supplements makes a difference in neuropathy.
Okay.
And then the reason is usually I tell patients you don't really need to take too much of vitamins because, again, they don't really make a difference. As long as you eat a healthy, balanced diet, if you want to take something, just a Centrum Silver type multivitamin has more than enough. And you have to be a little bit careful with some of the vitamins, too much of it can be bad as well. For example, B6 in too much quantities can be toxic to the nerves. In addition to when you're deficient in B6, you can have neuropathy from it.
Right.
It's a balance with a lot of the vitamins. And as I said, none of the other supplements really had, makes a difference. Like there's no good clinical trials done in patients with placebo control. The only one where there is some data is alpha lipoic acid or acetylcarnitine in diabetic peripheral neuropathies. But the doses that you need is actually much, much higher. And the only good trial that was done in this country was done by Mayo Clinic almost 25 years ago now. It gave them IV and high doses. The oral study did not show any benefit compared to the placebo.
Okay, yeah, that was one of the things that I read about, and I'm actually taking that right now, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything for
Yeah.
me. Yeah,
I usually tell patients but at the same time, my advice to patients is, especially for their painful symptoms, if you want to take it and if it works as a placebo, go for it. It
yeah.
doesn't have side effects. It's better than me prescribing gabapentin for you. So,
Okay, what is that? The alpha lipoic acid?
yeah.
Okay, and what about the naltrexone? Or no.
Again, the naltrexone there, I mean, I've tried it on a couple of my patients. I don't think anybody remained on it. There's some interesting mouse data that works for neuropathic pain, but there hasn't been any good clinical trials done in patients. And probably over the last 10 years, I've tried in about a handful. Nobody saw any significant benefit.
Okay, yeah. The issue that I really have is burning sensation. It's numb, but then it burns. It's just.
I mean, gabapentin is probably your first line I would try.
Okay. Okay. Oh, one other quick question with gabapentin. Do you have to? Will you get used to the dosage and then have to continue increasing the dosage?
Not necessarily. Once you reach a stable dose, usually you don't. It's not like the opioid drugs.
Okay.
Opioids, there's no ceiling.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
with
because
the
I tried
gabapentin,
it.
you titrate it up and find a stable dose, and most patients remain on that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Barbara
All right,
Schiff.
Barbara Berman, you're up, and please, I hear some background background noise from somebody, so please mute yourself if you're not speaking.
Bill,
Thank you very
Barbara
much.
Schiff has her hand up also after Barbara Berman.
Okay, Barbara.
Hi, everyone. I recently just was diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy. In 1 year, I developed 3 idiopathic diseases: Meniere's, fibromyalgia, and peripheral neuropathy. And so my first question is there any connection between getting those 3 at the same time?
Um, Not that I know of with the Meniere's, but with fibromyalgia and small fiber neuropathy, there is a connection. In fact, about 30% of patients who are initially diagnosed as fibromyalgia, they have small fiber sensor neuropathy.
The second question, it is the small fiber neuropathy. The neurologist said the only test was to biopsy the nerve, so there was no need to do it because it's very painful. My question to you is, okay, don't do that. Good.
No, no, it's not painful at all.
Oh,
It's such a simple, so you don't need nerve biopsy, you need a skin biopsy. That's how we diagnose small fiber, because small fibers are the nerve endings that goes to your skin and give you the perception of pain, touch, temperature, and so forth. And our electrical testing, nerve conduction studies cannot check the integrity of those nerve fibers. Skin biopsy is less painful than a blood draw.
that's interesting because I asked him about that. I had read up on that, and he said, no, you have to biopsy the nerve. It's very painful. So okay, so maybe I should come in to
Yeah, I
see
think
you. And
he's not experienced, perhaps, with the skin biopsies.
And 40 years behind, Barbara.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then maybe I should come in to see you about that. Will it get worse, small fiber neuropathy? Will that progress over time?
So if I were to take 100 patients in the year 1 of their small fiber neuropathy, I would say at least 2/3 will see a progression where the numbness and pain may move up the legs for about 3-4 years, and then the rate of progression plateaus quite a bit. So in majority of the time, and it's really, if it's pure small fiber neuropathy, it rarely spreads to the other domains. Like you're not going to be crippled, wheelchair bound, or anything like that. It's more of a nuisance, and then the pain can be quite bad. Obviously, I'm not minimizing it, but it's not the type of neuropathy that will then cause people to develop major muscle weakness.
So will I be on this medication long term?
Potentially, yes. And depending on your, I think earlier we talked a little bit about the post-infectious or post-vaccine neuropathies. Those, if yours came on really suddenly like that, and you may not even be aware that you had an infection, and those type of neuropathies actually progress for a couple months, plateau for about 6-9 months, and then start to slowly improve. So if you've been only a year mark, kind of compare your symptoms now to the first 2-3 months. If they are a little bit better, that means that maybe it will continue to get better over time.
Okay. And I did have a question. I know this is going to sound odd, but when I was first reading up on this, I read that sometimes the toe next to the big toe will become like a hammer toe and will cause a lot of pain. And I put on these little toe straighteners, and it was like a rush of energy. I was just wondering if there's ever been any connection found between that.
So you have hammer toes or no?
No, I didn't really. It was slightly bent, but it started to get red on top. And it was just, I kept thinking, oh, it must be getting worse. It must be getting worse. And then I read this article that said sometimes when you develop peripheral neuropathy, that will happen at the same time. And so I thought, well, why not reverse engineer? If it's making it worse, straightening it would make it better. And it like when I put them on at first, it wasn't a cure or anything, but it did cause a great amount of relief. And I was just wondering if anyone had ever found a connection with that.
I mean, not that I know of. At least typically the hammer toes do not develop within a year of neuropathy. They develop very, very slowly, and more common in genetic neuropathies or idiopathic neuropathy that's been there for 10, 20 years.
Okay, yeah, this started because I had tendonitis in my foot. I was put in a medical boot for 4 months. And during the time I was in the medical boot, then the pain started in my other foot. I was having pain in both feet. The orthopedist said, there's really no pain. I guess he thought I was looking for pain meds, which I wasn't. And then I went to a rheumatologist. They said, we think fibromyalgia, but see the neurologist. And then he said the small fibers. So it was a little bit of a, trying to track it down. And so would it be helpful for me to see you then to do like a skin biopsy? Because I would like an answer to the question.
Sure, sure. Just reach out to me and, we'll get you into the clinic.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And
Okay,
Barbara,
Rebecca, who'd you say was up?
The other Barbara.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, Doctor.
Barbara Schiff?
Yes, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear
Ma'am,
you.
go ahead.
Great. So I was diagnosed with small fiber neuropathy about a year ago. Strangely enough, I was listening about the toe. Pain started in one of my toes, and then it kind of progressed to burning, all the things you're talking about. And then about 6 months ago, it wasn't too bad. About 6 months ago, I started getting restless leg syndrome in one of my legs. Is that related? That's one of my questions.
Yes.
Okay. And number two is I've been on Synthroid for like over 40 years. Originally, they said I had Hashimoto's. Now they're saying you don't have Hashimoto's. That the antigen or whatever you want to call it is not showing up in my blood work anymore. So I'm wondering if there's any correlation with thyroid disease. And I know you already talked about supplements. My doctor's put me on magnesium, but you're saying there's really no point taking that.
So magnesium is different. I'll come back to that. It's not going to cure your neuropathy, but magnesium actually can be helpful for cramping. For patients who has peripheral neuropathy, sometimes they can get really bad cramping in their foot muscles, hand muscles, sometimes even calves. Obviously, neuropathy, when you have neuropathy, that literally changes the threshold for how quickly you get the cramping. And the three electrolytes that are important for maintaining the muscle membrane potential are potassium, magnesium, and calcium. So when patients complain of a lot of muscle cramping, I usually tell them to eat a banana a day for potassium, drink milk, and take magnesium supplements to try it. Doesn't work in everybody, but when it works, it's really helpful. Years ago, I had a herniated disc, and I get Charlie horses in my calves, and so I sometimes take magnesium supplements as well for that.
Doctor, which type of magnesium? Glycinate or oxide, or is there any?
There's no good science on that. It's really you have to try different ones, see which one your body absorbs better. I take the regular oxalate one.
Okay. And so, is there any correlation with thyroid disease or?
Yeah. So you probably did have Hashimoto's, but you've developed hypothyroidism as a consequence of that. That's why they kept you on the thyroid. So untreated hypothyroidism can cause neuropathy. But since you've been treated, there's no worry that it was the cause of your neuropathy.
Okay. And you said it is related to restless leg syndrome.
Yes, so both, there's a big overlap between peripheral neuropathy and restless leg. So many patients with neuropathy can have restless leg, and about 40% of patients with restless leg syndrome have peripheral neuropathy.
Okay.
But why it happens in some patients and others, we don't know. I mean, again, restless leg is also one of those weird diseases that there's not much research going on in the field, unfortunately. And we have some symptomatic treatments, but no good understanding of the mechanism.
Which would be the symptomatic treatment?
So medications like what we call dopamine agonist, or even medication like gabapentin. So again, it was a trial and error thing. People have found that gabapentin can help with the restless leg as well.
Okay. And my last question is, you mentioned Pilates. I had actually started it about 2 months ago. Is the reformer okay where you're squeezing your leg back and forth?
Get out of here.
Okay, too?
Yeah, again, what I usually tell patients about exercise is if it really hurts you the next day, back off. But you can, your body is your best um, gauge of how much you can push yourself with exercise. Start slowly, do the gentler exercises. Um, and when I started doing Pilates, my wife and I went to a class. It was all 20-year-olds. We couldn't keep up with those guys. So, we had a teacher. We then found somebody who was lucky who knew how to work with older people. And I think you need to make sure that person doesn't push your body to a point where it's going to hurt you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Rebecca, you're up.
Yeah, to go to the second Barbara again, I do Pilates several times a week, Pilates reformer, and it's very good exercise. I tell people I had a mammogram a few months ago, and the technician told me I had really good chest muscles.
That's good.
To the first Barbara, she asked about the hammer toes. Is there something to help with that at all? She talked about some kind of pads or something you put on them.
So, Barbara, why don't you answer?
Again, this was just something that I picked up on research, but there are like little sleeves basically that you can slide onto the toe. And so if it's bent, the sleeve will, straighten it. It's like a little bit of a brace. And I think those, I don't think it could possibly hurt anything. And, why not try? So if anyone's interested, you can get them on Amazon. There's some that's almost like a mesh outside and some that are just like a squishy. So, give them a try. They only last for a while, but you could just keep replacing them. And they certainly don't hurt. I don't see any reason it could hurt. So if it helps anyone, go for it. But I'm not the doctor.
Yeah. And some patients who have really bad hammer toes, the top of their toes rub against their shoes and then get ulcers and so forth. So in those patients, usually podiatrists can actually fix it by doing surgery and kind of fusing the joints. It's more of a drastic surgery. So unless it's really bad and you're having ulcers, I wouldn't recommend it.
I'm having an operation on mine on February 26th because I do have an ulcer.
Yep.
And he's been working on it for a few years. And I'm at the point, I had a blockage in my leg, so I couldn't get it for a while. And so now I am getting it because it's at the point where I've had an ulcer and my podiatrist said, can't put it off any longer. It's because it keeps getting infected.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we're going to end our conversations, and I want to say, Dr. Hoke, thank you for a very interesting back and forth, and I hope we didn't wear you out. But
no, it was a pleasure meeting everybody and seeing old friends.
But I believe in, as I said, motion is lotion, rest is rust. And also on exercise, go low and go slow.
That is true.
And I remember those things, and like Pat said from the beginning, use it to exercise.
Yep.
Anyway, okay. Wonderful presentation. And Pat, I'm going to turn this over to you for closing remarks.
Okay, I would like to personally thank Dr. Hoke for being so flexible and meeting us on this date on a Saturday afternoon. We appreciate it very much. You can see from the turnout that it was very well received. I did want to know, some people have asked, can we still make appointments with you? Or when you say call, do we call the clinic? What are you suggesting?
The easiest is to email me.
Okay.
Because when you call the clinic, it goes to the general neurology clinic and patients get triaged. Sometimes you don't get an appointment. I'm gonna have to tell you guys though, my schedule is quite full. I'm full until the summer, but I'll try to make room or have one of my colleagues see you as well. So there are now 5 of us who specialize in peripheral neuropathies. You know, Dr. McCrae, some of you mentioned his name. Unfortunately, we lost him to University of Michigan, but we were able to recruit new folks to our clinic. And we're training more.
Do any of your doctors go to Columbia, Maryland, or Howard County?
Unfortunately, no. All of our clinics are in the outpatient center at the main hospital.
So no patients are seen at the Merkin Center.
No, the Merkin Center is just research.
Okay, so there we are. That has also been asked. I put Dr. Hoke's email address in the chat. I would also like to say that a number of people have asked about the recording. It takes us about 2 weeks to get it polished and up on our website. There will be a link under past meetings. Just look for the February 26th meeting and it will provide the link. In the meantime, we also hope to put up, with Dr. Hoke's permission, his slideshow on the website so that at least you can refer back to a point that maybe you made a note on or want to ask more questions about.
Pat, you said February 26th meeting. Today's the 7th.
February 2026.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. February 26th. All right. And then the other question that people have asked is about whether we will be able to save the chat. We always save the chat. The hosts can. Sometimes individuals can, depending if they're on a laptop. But we will also try to put the chat up on the website. And Bill, if you would mind putting our website up, our website address, while I go along with the wrap up. Judd, could you bring up the slides for the wrap up? No, he's not able to. Okay, I will try to do that. Or I'll just tell you. The upcoming meetings are for Bethesda Chevy Chase. The Maryland PN support group is on the 15th of the month, February 15th, sorry, at 7 o'clock. If you are new, please contact me, leader@dcpnsupport.org, to register and to be added to the mailing list. So if you're interested in what used to be Steve's group, now called the Bethesda Chevy Chase Maryland group, email me at leader@dcpnsupport.org and I will connect you with the registration. Our group will next meet on, oh dear, I'm sorry, the wrong wrap up. This is why we have that. I looked at that date and I said, something is wrong here. I was counting on us having it to show. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it back up. Sorry about this.
Yeah.
Let me see, here we go.
Yeah. Judson was playing with his fingers before.
Yeah, I have it now, I think. There we go. So can you see it now? Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So let's start again. The upcoming meetings are Bethesda Chevy Chase on February 19th at 7 o'clock. If you are new and want to join that group, contact me, leader@dcpnsupport.org, to register and to be added to the mailing list. This will be an open discussion meeting. If you can't remember this or don't want to jot it down, use your camera, take a picture of the slides, and you won't have to worry about the dates. Our next group, the Virginia DC group, will be on March 7th, also open discussion. And Judd, I think, is putting the website up, but it's pnsnetwork.org, Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network.org, and click on join. If you do not join, it's free and painless. You will not receive future invitations. So that's really important. To get on our mailing list, please go to pnsnetwork.org and click on join.
Okay, Pat.
Yes.
Bill posted pnnetwork.org. So which one's correct?
PNS network.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
PN.
And Judson just put it in the chat too.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the Western Neuropathy Association, I'm going to turn to Glenn in a second because they have an amazing number of general and topic-focused support group meetings, all of which are listed at pnhelp.org for dates and times. But also, I wanted to introduce, the Western Neuropathy Association's members-only webinar that will be held. And would you like to speak to that, Glenn?
Yes, one of the things that we're doing over at Western Neuropathy Association, since we already have 8 different online support groups a month and a couple in person as well, is to promote membership. We've been trying to get some of these quarterly members-only webinars up on there. And the first one is coming up this coming week on the 11th. We're going to be covering the topics that Pat has listed in that wrap-up. And a lot of them has to do with articles that have been posted originally in Neuropathy Hope, which is our quarterly newsletter. All of this can be found at pnhelp.org. But if anybody would like, more individual information on stuff, I'm sticking my email into the chat, or at least the easy one to use, which is glentaj@yahoo.com. I'm still a Yahoo person with that. And I can send you links and all sorts of other information. Obviously, the PN Help site not only has the schedule of events, but it has a lot of other information as well. And, certainly go and check that out. If it looks good to you and you're not currently a member, become a member. It's only $30 a year, and it supports basically all of these events, the database, and the bandwidth for doing all the online support groups.
Okay. And there you can see some of the topics that were raised today: Lyrica versus gabapentin, what's the difference, 8 neuropathy supplements. So a lot of your questions may be revisited during this webinar. Next is a reminder that there will be a screening of Dr. Gregory Masson's documentary, and it will be held at Hopkins. And we're hoping some of our Maryland group will join us there at the Owens Auditorium at the East Baltimore campus. This is February 20th. This, again, if you need help finding it, you can go to the Merkin Center website, but also just take a picture or write down this URL here. And seats are limited. We would love to see you there on February 20th. And finally, there is a Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy webinar, Behind the Lab Coat, How Medical Research Really Works. This is on March 5th at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. You go to foundationforpn.org to register for that. They will be addressing questions that are sort of congenital to the ones that we talked about today, how clinical trials work, how patients are kept safe. So if you are interested in learning more of the behind the scenes on medical research, you can register for that on March 5th. So my final comment is to say thank you to everyone for your participation. And please take the exit survey. The exit survey is done at the end of each meeting. When you leave the meeting, it will pop up automatically. Basically, we're looking for feedback on this meeting and also topics that you're interested in for future meetings. And finally, at 4 o'clock,
Hoke, one.
Going to overtime, and I will let Bill just talk about that.
Yes, we usually have overtime. We're about 2 minutes early, but we will go to overtime, and that's for people to just sit and chat.
.edu.
Someone's
who's
talking.
It was Gordon. I muted him. I muted him.
Who's the bad person?
It was Gordon. I muted him. Relax.
Go in the corner. Go in the corner and don't say a word.
I'm going to take off, guys.
Okay. We'll speak again soon, Dr. Hoke.
Thank you, Dr. Hoke. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Thank
All
you.
right. Again, we're going, excuse me. We're going, wait a minute. Sorry. we're in overtime, and overtime is a time when people can sit, talk, and chat, and talk about what the meeting was about, or it's more of a social thing too, and meet people and see people and just trade stories and tell lies and tell truths. And anyway, so I declare that we're going in overtime. I have 3:51. We'll go to 4:30 for the first overtime.
And I'd like to say, I'm sorry, someone had questioned Dr. Hoke's email. I looked again, and this one may be more his personal one. Let me put it up. A Hoke 1.
That's right.
At jh.edu.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. A Hoke 1 at jh.johns-hopkins.edu.
Yeah.
Number
My impression is
one or
that's
spelled one?
Number
just the
one.
number one. My impression is that's the one he reads.
Yes.
It's amazing that he's willing to give that email out. I think he's just such a commendable, he's just such a great guy, and he's one of the leaders in the field, and speaking to everyone like this and sharing his email and knowledge. He's just he's really a gem. I think we all
He
can agree
really
on that.
is, and he's very
Right.
good about getting right back to people. I mean, he's very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Lou.
Yeah, same here, Meredith. Nice to see
Yeah.
you too. Thank you.
Lou,
I think of you and me and Pat way back when, in
Right. Yep.
Annandale and places.
Yeah.
And Steve.
And old Steve, right.
Yeah.
Steve.
And Mike.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lou, did you want to comment on Dr. Hoke's description of how the natural history of anti-mag and MGUS tend to work? Because I know that you are pretty much an expert on that.
Yeah, I'm certainly involved, and there's one that the gentleman on the I don't know, Phil Bettendorf, if he's still on. Sound like we have a lot in common in terms of that. But I mean, it's one of those that Dr. Hoke mentioned. 3 out of 100,000. It's a very rare condition. It tends to be one of the more severe. Although I've had it this is like 23 years, and it's only it's been challenging. But the last year, I noticed a significant decline, muscle weakness and stuff. And there's not much you can do with that, as Dr. Hoke said. But, I consider myself lucky that I've been able to go this long. And having the right doctors makes a huge difference. Having Dr. Hoke and his predecessor, Dr. Kornblath at Hopkins, has been so important to me. But thanks, Glenn. Yeah. I'm happy to talk with anybody about that condition. I gave in the private chat, Phil my phone number if he wants to.
Oh, okay. I'll look at the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, no, please, Phil. Happy to talk about it.
All right.
Yeah. The interesting part of that is being a rare condition is that, while yes, it's certainly in